Amma never thought her wedding would feel like attending her own execution. Jinwoo purchased her from her father like livestock at market. And on their first night as husband and wife, he declared she was merely compensation for a debt that could never truly be repaid. She told him precisely what he could do with his arrogance and slammed her bedroom door in his face. But now it's 3 in the morning and he just appeared in that doorway reeking of whiskey, admitting he cannot stop thinking about their ceremony kiss. Every fiber of her being tells her to push him away. But before logic can prevail, his mouth captures hers. And he's kissing her like she's oxygen and he's been drowning. And as she returns his kiss with matching intensity, she realizes this isn't how a man who feels nothing kisses. Welcome to Neok Drama's Besties. Please ensure you like and subscribe to our channel. The wedding dress felt like a prison. Amma stood facing the officiant, her deep brown skin glowing against the white lace worth more than her family's entire home. This wasn't her decision. None of this was her choice. Her hands trembled as she clutched yellow roses, their thorns pressing through thin fabric into her skin. Across from her stood Jinwoo, impossibly handsome and absolutely lethal. The charcoal designer suit fit his lean, muscular frame like it was painted on. His sharp dark eyes assessed her with all the warmth of winter frost, examining her like she was an insect he'd found crawling across his marble floors. His defined jaw remained tight, his lips pressed into a hard, unforgiving line. Even during his own wedding ceremony, violence seemed to shimmer beneath his skin. Perhaps directed at her. The officiant spoke in Korean. An interpreter translated into English for Amma. "Do you take this woman as your lawfully wedded wife?" Jinwoo's silence stretched until nervous murmurs rippled through the assembled witnesses. His men, dangerous-looking individuals in identical dark suits, shifted uncomfortably. Finally, one word dropped like a stone. "Yes." It sounded like a condemnation. The officiant turned to Amma. "Do you take this man as your lawfully wedded husband?" Her father's beaten face flashed through her mind, bloodied, desperate, begging these men for more time to pay what he owed. They'd given him an ultimatum. His life or his daughter. What choice was that really? "Yes," she whispered. "You may now kiss to seal this union." Jinwoo stepped forward. Amma's breath caught in her throat. He smelled of expensive cologne mixed with something predatory. His hand on her waist was almost bruising, fingers pressing hard enough to mark. Without warning, he jerked her against his solid chest and took her mouth. Gentle wasn't in his vocabulary. His lips assaulted hers with controlled violence. The kiss communicated punishment, showed exactly how much he hated this obligation. Yet lightning shot through Amma's body, forcing a gasp against his demanding mouth. She felt his body go completely rigid, sensed something fundamental change in the way he gripped her for one brief moment. Then he tore himself away like she'd burned him. Applause erupted around them. Amma touched her swollen lips, heart hammering. Jinwoo refused to look at her again. He walked down the aisle without her, leaving her to follow like an obedient dog. The reception was endless torture. Amma sat beside Jinwoo at the head table while guests offered congratulations she didn't feel. He never addressed her, never acknowledged her existence. He drank whiskey and conducted business with his men as if she'd simply vanished. When someone mentioned his beautiful bride, he responded without emotion, "She means nothing." Each word felt like a knife. By the time they arrived at his estate, Amma's face ached from the fake smile she'd maintained. The mansion sprawled endlessly, all white marble and gold fixtures. It looked like a palace, an empty, frozen palace. "Your room is upstairs, third door on the left," Jinwoo stated without facing her, already pouring another drink. "Stay there." "My room?" Amma questioned. "We're married. Shouldn't we share a bedroom?" He spun around with shocking speed, making her step back instinctively. His eyes blazed with something dangerous and barely controlled. 3 long strides brought him directly in front of her, towering over her petite frame. "Let me make something clear," he said with deceptive calm, his voice like silk wrapped around a blade. "This marriage is a business transaction. Nothing more than that. You're here because your worthless father owed money he couldn't pay. You're the payment. You mean nothing to me." Amma lifted her chin, refusing to show fear despite her shaking hands. Then explain that kiss at the altar. Something flickered across his face. That was for show. It didn't feel like show. His hand shot out, gripping her chin and forcing her face up to meet his burning gaze. Don't fool yourself. You think because you're beautiful I want you? I don't want a wife, especially not you. His thumb traced her bottom lip even as he spoke those words, contradicting everything. Amma's breath hitched. The air between them practically crackled with something unnamed and electric. Let me go, she said firmly. Gladly. But he stayed frozen for several long seconds. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then lower, following the curve of her throat where her pulse beat visibly. His jaw flexed. Get upstairs before I do something we'll both hate. Amma yanked free and grabbed her dress, lifting the fabric to climb the grand staircase. She felt his stare burning into her back the entire way up. At the top, she glanced back. He stood there watching, gripping his glass so hard she thought it might shatter. Their eyes met. Then he turned sharply and disappeared into his study, the door slamming with finality. The bedroom was beautiful but cold. Amma sat on the edge of the enormous bed and finally allowed herself to cry. She'd lost everything, her freedom, her future, her choices. Her father had sold her to a monster, and now she was trapped. She changed from the wedding gown into a silk nightdress that had been left for her. The material felt impossibly thin, sliding against her skin like water. She climbed under the covers and stared at the ceiling. Around midnight, footsteps echoed outside her door. They stopped right there, hesitating. Her heart raced. Would he come in? The doorknob turned slowly. Amma sat up, clutching the sheets to her chest. The door opened, revealing Jinwoo, still in his dress shirt, but with several buttons undone now. His hair looked tousled, like anxious hands had run through it repeatedly. His eyes seemed slightly unfocused from alcohol. What are you doing here? She demanded. He leaned against the doorframe, studying her. This is my house. I go wherever I want. You told me to stay in my room. I did. He pushed off the frame and approached slowly like a big cat stalking its prey. But I can't stop thinking about something. What? Her voice came out breathier than she intended. He reached the bed and braced his hands on either side of her, leaning down until only inches separated their faces. I need to know if that kiss was a fluke. Before she could answer, his mouth claimed hers again. This kiss was different from the first, slower, deeper, more dangerous. His lips moved against hers with skill that made her dizzy. Without thinking, her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing away. He made a low sound deep in his throat and deepened the kiss further, his tongue sliding against hers in ways that created fire low in her belly. One hand moved to cradle her neck, tilting her head for better access. His thumb stroked the sensitive skin there while he kissed her like he was trying to memorize her taste. Amma had never been kissed like this before. Never felt this kind of heat racing through her blood. Then suddenly, Jinwoo jerked back like he'd been electrocuted. His eyes were wild, his breathing ragged. He stared at her kiss-swollen lips, her flushed cheeks, her hand still gripping his shirt. This was a mistake, he said harshly. He turned and walked out, shutting the door firmly behind him. Amma fell back onto the bed, her whole body trembling. She touched her lips where his had been seconds ago. That wasn't how a man who felt nothing kissed. That was how a man barely holding onto control kissed. What had she gotten herself into? In the hallway, Jinwoo pressed his forehead against the cool wall, trying to slow his racing heart. His body still burned with wanting her. This was dangerous. Incredibly dangerous. He didn't do attachments. He didn't do feelings. And he absolutely didn't fall for women forced into his life. But something about Amma's defiant eyes and soft lips was already cracking his armor. He pushed away from the wall and headed to his own room, knowing sleep wouldn't come tonight. This arrangement was supposed to be simple. She stays. He ignores her. Debt paid. So why did he already want to go back to that room and finish what he'd started? 3 weeks of living like ghosts in the same house was destroying Jinwoo's control. He saw Amma everywhere. Mornings when she made breakfast in the sun-filled kitchen, her brown skin radiant in the golden light. Afternoons when she read in the library, curled up in his favorite chair. Evenings when she walked through the garden, her braids swinging around her shoulders. And every single time his body reacted in ways he despised. He tried ignoring her, tried acting like she didn't exist. But that was impossible when she looked like that, moved like that, breathed in his space. The worst part, she wasn't scared of him anymore. Everyone feared Jinwoo. His enemies, his men, even his own family before they died. Fear was how he maintained control. But Alma would meet his eyes during their rare encounters, her chin raised in challenge, and he felt something dangerous shift in his chest. Tonight, he came home late from a meeting gone sideways. 2 shipments intercepted. Someone was selling him out, and he would find them. His mood was black as he entered the house, ready to pour a drink and brood in his study. Instead, he found Alma in the living room wearing a dress the color of sunset that hugged every curve of her body. She was dancing. Music played from her phone, something with percussion and rhythm that made her hips move in ways that should be illegal. Her eyes were closed, her arms raised above her head as she swayed. She looked free, stunning, untouchable. Jinwoo's hands clenched into fists. "What are you doing?" His voice cut through the music like broken glass. Alma's eyes flew open. She didn't look embarrassed or frightened. She looked annoyed. "I'm dancing. Is that forbidden too? You're disrupting my peace." "Your peace?" She actually laughed at him. "You're never here. This whole house feels like a tomb. I'm just trying to feel human for 5 minutes." Something hot flared in his chest. "If you're so unhappy, there's the door." "Oh, I'd love to leave," Alma said, shutting off the music and walking toward him. Each step was deliberate, her hips swaying even without the music. "But we both know your men would drag me back before I reached the gate. I'm a prisoner here, not a wife." "You're my wife. I'm your property." She stopped right in front of him, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something sweet like cocoa butter that made his head swim. "You wanted me to disappear, to hide in my room and not exist. But I exist, Jinwoo. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise." The way she said his name with that slight Ghanaian accent did things to him. "Watch yourself," he said quietly. "Dangerously." "Or what?" She tilted her head, her dark eyes challenging him. "You'll ignore me harder? Lock me away? At least then I'd know you see me." His control snapped. Jinwoo grabbed her wrist and yanked her flush against him. "You want me to see you? Fine. I see that you're a complication I don't need. I see that you walk around my house in dresses like this, making me crazy. I see that I can't stop thinking about you no matter how much I try." Alma's breath caught. Her free hand pressed against his chest, but she didn't push him away. "Then why keep trying?" "Because wanting you is weakness." "Maybe," she whispered, her eyes dropping to his lips. "Or maybe fighting it is making you weak." The air between them sparked with electricity. Jinwoo's grip tightened on her wrist as his other hand cupped her face. His thumb traced her bottom lip and she trembled against him. "You don't understand what you're asking for," he said roughly. "Then show me." He almost kissed her. His head lowered, their lips nearly touching, both breathing hard. He could feel the rapid beat of her heart against his chest, could see the desire darkening her eyes. At the last second, he released her and stepped back. "Go to your room, Alma." The hurt that crossed her face made something twist painfully in his gut. But she recovered quickly, her expression going cold. "One day," she said softly, "you're going to regret pushing me away." She walked past him, her shoulder brushing his. The brief contact felt like fire. Jinwoo stood frozen, listening to her footsteps climb the stairs. A door closed upstairs, and only then did he release the breath he'd been holding. He poured himself whiskey and downed it in one swallow. This couldn't continue. He was losing control. And in his world, losing control meant death. The next morning, Jinwoo decided the solution was obvious. Total avoidance. He left before sunrise and didn't return until well after midnight. He buried himself in work, tracking down the traitor in his organization with single-minded focus. But even while interrogating his enemies, his mind drifted to Alma. Was she eating enough? Was she safe? Was she thinking about him the way he couldn't stop thinking about her? He hated it. By the 4th day of his avoidance plan, Jinwoo returned home at 2 in the morning to find Amma in the kitchen. She wore a tank top and shorts that showed her long legs. Her hair was wrapped in a colorful cloth. She was making tea, moving around his kitchen like she belonged there. "Can't sleep?" he asked from the doorway. She didn't jump. "I could ask you the same. I've been working. You've been hiding." She poured hot water into her cup, steam rising between them. "I scare you." "Nothing scares me." She turned to face him, leaning back against the counter. "I do. Because you want me and you hate yourself for it." Jinwoo walked into the kitchen slowly. "You think highly of yourself." "I think clearly." She sipped her tea, watching him over the rim. "You avoid me all day, but I hear you outside my door at night. Sometimes you stand there for minutes." "What are you doing, Jinwoo? Building up courage to come in?" His jaw clenched. "Making sure you're secure." "Liar." He moved fast, closing the distance between them in 2 strides. He planted his hands on the counter on either side of her, trapping her. "You want to know what I'm doing outside your door?" "I'm fighting the urge to kick it down. I'm reminding myself why I can't touch you. I'm trying to remember that you're here because of debt, not because you chose me." Amma set down her tea with shaking hands. "And if I choose you now?" "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." Her hands came up to rest on his chest. She could feel his heart racing beneath her palms. "I'm saying I hate you for bringing me here. I hate you for treating me like nothing. But I can't stop wanting you to touch me. To look at me the way you're looking at me right now." Jinwoo's control hung by a thread. "Amma, kiss me," she whispered. "Or let me go. But stop torturing us both." His hand came up to wrap gently around her throat, tilting her head back. "If I kiss you again, I won't stop there." "Good." He crushed his mouth to hers with a groan. This kiss was explosive, all the weeks of tension igniting between them. His tongue swept into her mouth, claiming her, tasting her. She kissed him back just as fiercely, her hands fisting in his shirt. Jinwoo lifted her onto the counter, stepping between her thighs. His hands roamed her body, sliding under her tank top to feel her smooth skin. She gasped against his mouth, arching into his touch. "You're so soft," he murmured against her lips. "So perfect." His mouth moved to her neck, kissing and biting the sensitive skin there. Amma's head fell back, her hands threading through his hair. Every nerve ending in her body was on fire. "Jinwoo," she breathed. The sound of his name on her lips like that nearly destroyed him. His hand slid up her thigh and she shivered. He could feel her pulse racing under his lips as he kissed her throat. Then his phone rang. The sharp sound cut through the haze of desire. Jinwoo froze, his breathing ragged. Reality crashed back. He pulled away from her, his eyes wild. Amma sat on the counter, her lips swollen, her chest heaving, looking at him with confused longing. "I can't," he said roughly, even though his body screamed otherwise. "Why not?" "Because once I have you, I won't be able to let go. And you deserve better than someone like me." He turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the kitchen. But this time, something had shifted. As Jinwoo lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he knew the truth. He was already possessive of her, already consumed by her, already falling. And that terrified him more than any enemy ever could. The gunfire started at midnight. Amma jerked awake to the sound of breaking glass and shouting in Korean. Her heart jumped into her throat as more shots echoed through the mansion. She rolled out of bed, her mind spinning. Someone was attacking. Her door flew open and Jinwoo stood there, gun in hand, his eyes fierce. "Get down. Now." Before she could react, he crossed the room and pushed her to the floor, covering her body with his. More gunfire erupted downstairs. She could hear men shouting, fighting, the sounds of violence getting closer. "Stay here," Jinwoo commanded. "Don't move until I return." "Where are you going?" "To end whoever was stupid enough to attack my home." His eyes met hers and for a moment she saw genuine fear there. Fear for her. "If anyone besides me comes through that door, hide in the closet. There's a gun in the nightstand drawer." Then he was gone, moving like a shadow into the corridor. Amma huddled on the floor, her whole body shaking. The sounds of fighting seemed endless. More gunshots, yelling, something heavy falling. Then slowly silence. She held her breath, straining to hear. Footsteps approached her room. Heavy, purposeful. She scrambled toward the nightstand, reaching for the drawer where Jinwoo said there was a gun. The door opened. "It's me." Jinwoo's voice cut through her panic. She spun around and saw him standing there alive, but covered in blood. Some of it was his. A cut above his eye dripped red down his temple. His shirt was ripped, showing a slash on his ribs. Without thinking, Alma ran to him. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing." But he swayed slightly. She grabbed his arm, examining him. "Sit down before you collapse." For once, he didn't argue. He let her guide him to sit on the edge of her bed. His hands were still shaking, and she realized it wasn't from pain. It was from fear that hadn't left him yet. "Are they all dead?" she asked quietly, grabbing tissues to press against his bleeding eyebrow. "Yes." His hand suddenly grabbed her wrist, stopping her movements. His eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "When I heard them coming up the stairs toward your room, I thought I'd lose you. I thought I'd be too late. But you weren't. I could have been." His other hand came up to cup her face. "You could have died tonight because of me. Because of who I am and what I do. But I didn't." His thumb stroked her cheek. "I can't lose you, Alma. I know I have no right to feel this way. I know I've treated you terribly. But the thought of you being hurt made me realize something." "What?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "That I'm done fighting this. Done pretending I don't want you every second of every day." Before she could respond, he pulled her down onto his lap and kissed her with desperate hunger. This kiss was different from all the others. It was claiming, possessive, raw with emotion he'd been suppressing for weeks. Alma kissed him back just as fiercely, her hands tangling in his hair. She didn't care that he was bloody, didn't care that he was dangerous. She just needed to feel him alive and solid beneath her hands. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against her lips. "Tell me to leave right now or I won't be able to." She pulled back to look into his eyes. "Don't stop. Don't leave. I want this. I want you." Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. "You're mine then. Say it." "I'm yours." He groaned and stood, lifting her with him. He laid her gently on the bed, following her down. His body covered hers, his weight pressing her into the mattress in a way that made her feel protected despite everything. "I need to know you're all right," he said roughly, his hands running over her arms, her sides, checking for injuries. "Did they hurt you?" "No. You protected me." His forehead dropped to hers. "I'll always protect you. No one will ever harm you. You're mine to protect. Mine to keep safe. Mine." The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it made heat pool low in her stomach. "Then claim me," she whispered. His control shattered. Jinwoo's mouth found hers again as his hands explored her body with hunger that had been building for weeks. He touched her like he was memorizing every curve, every soft place. When his lips moved to her neck, she arched beneath him, gasping. "So responsive," he murmured against her skin. "So perfect. Do you know how long I've wanted this?" "Wanted you?" "Show me," she breathed. He did. His hands were everywhere, learning what made her gasp, what made her moan his name. He was surprisingly gentle despite his rough words, touching her like something precious even as he claimed her completely. "Look at me," he commanded softly when her eyes fluttered closed. "I want to see your face. Want to watch you come undone." Alma's eyes opened, locking with his. What she saw there took her breath away. Desire, yes. Possession, absolutely. But also something softer. Something that looked almost like love. "You're so beautiful like this," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Beautiful and mine." Their first time together was intense, overwhelming. Jinwoo whispered things in Korean that she didn't understand but felt in her soul. He told her in English that she belonged to him now, that he would never release her, that she had ruined him for anyone else. When it was over, they lay tangled together, both breathing hard. Jinwoo pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapped tightly around her like he was afraid she might vanish. "That was," Alma started but couldn't find words. "Everything," he finished quietly. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her back. You're everything, Amma. I fought it because I knew once I had you, I'd never recover. She looked up at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. This wasn't the cold man who had married her. This was someone real, someone who felt deeply and was frightened by those feelings. What happens now? She asked. Now you sleep. I'll stay here and keep you safe. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, surprisingly tender. Rest, beautiful. I have you. She fell asleep in his arms, feeling safer than she had in months. When Amma woke, morning light poured through the windows. She reached across the bed, expecting to find Jinwoo beside her. He was gone. She sat up, clutching the sheets to her chest. Maybe he had just gone to shower or get breakfast. She got dressed and went downstairs, her body still humming from the night before. She found him in his study on the phone, looking every bit the ruthless boss. When he saw her in the doorway, something flickered in his eyes before his expression went blank. I have to go, he said into the phone and disconnected. Good morning, Amma said softly, walking toward him with a smile. It's afternoon, actually. His voice was clipped. Professional. I have business all day. Don't wait up. She stopped, confused. Jinwoo, about last night. Last night was a mistake. Born from adrenaline and fear. It won't happen again. The words hit her like a physical blow. A mistake? We both got caught up in the moment after the attack. It meant nothing. Nothing. Her voice rose. You said I was yours. You said I was everything. His jaw clenched. I say many things in the heat of the moment. Don't read too much into it. Alma felt tears burn her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. You're a coward. Excuse me? You heard me. You're terrified of what you feel, so you're pushing me away again. She walked up to his desk, leaning forward. But I felt you last night, Jinwoo. I saw you, the real you. And you can't erase that, no matter how cold you act now. Get out of my study. Gladly. She turned and walked away with her head high, even though her heart was shattering. Behind her, she heard something crash, glass breaking, Jinwoo's frustration finally exploding. But he didn't come after her. Amma went to her room and finally let the tears fall. She had given herself to him completely, and he had thrown it back in her face like it was worthless. In his study, Jinwoo stood among the shattered glass of the whiskey tumbler he'd thrown at the wall. His hands shook. His chest felt tight. He had just experienced the most incredible night of his life, holding the woman who somehow made him feel human again. And then dawn had come with the reality that loving her put her in danger. The attack proved that. So he did what he always did. He pushed her away to protect her, even if it was destroying them both. The pattern established itself. 3 days after their first night together, during the day, Jinwoo was cold and distant, barking orders at her like she was one of his staff. He criticized everything. How she dressed, where she spent time in the house. He picked fights over nothing, his eyes hard and his words cutting. But at night, everything changed. He would appear at her door after midnight, his control finally breaking. Sometimes he knocked. Sometimes he just walked in like he owned her room, which technically he did. But she always let him stay. Their nights together were explosive, passionate, full of whispered confessions that evaporated with the sunrise. This has to stop, Amma said on the 5th night, even as she pulled him down onto her bed. I know, he agreed, his mouth already on her neck. Tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. The pattern continued, driving them both slowly insane. 2 weeks into this torture, Amma finally confronted him during dinner. She had started eating in the dining room instead of hiding in her room, refusing to be invisible anymore. Why do you hate me during the day? She asked, setting down her fork. Jinwoo looked up from his plate, his expression unreadable. I don't hate you. Then what do you call the way you treat me? You act like I disgust you, but then at night you touch me like I'm precious. Which is the real you, Jinwoo? He was quiet for a long moment. Both. Neither. I don't know anymore. The honesty surprised her. She softened slightly. Talk to me. Help me understand. There's nothing to understand. This situation is complicated only because you make it complicated. She stood and walked around the table to where he sat. What are you so afraid of? His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, pulling her down onto his lap. The sudden movement made her gasp. His eyes burned into hers, filled with conflict. "I'm afraid that if I let myself care about you in the daylight, I'll lose you," he said roughly. "Everyone I've ever cared about has been taken from me. My parents, my brother, everyone." Alma's heart cracked at the pain in his voice. "What happened to them?" "Killed. All of them. By rival families who wanted to hurt me." His grip on her wrist tightened, not painful but desperate. "I was 19 when I watched my brother die. He was only 16. They killed him to send me a message." "Jinwoo," she whispered, her hand coming up to cup his face. "I built walls after that. Became cold, ruthless, because caring makes you vulnerable in my world. But then you came along with your defiant eyes and your fire. And you're destroying everything I built to protect myself. Maybe those walls need to come down. If they come down and I lose you, it will destroy me." She leaned her forehead against his. "Then don't lose me. Keep me close. Stop pushing me away every morning like I'm a secret you're ashamed of." His arms wrapped around her waist, holding her tight. "I'm not ashamed. I'm terrified." "So am I," she admitted. "But I'm tired of fighting this. Fighting you. Fighting us." He kissed her then, soft and slow, so different from their usual desperate passion. When he pulled back, something had shifted in his eyes. "Come with me tomorrow," he said. "I have business to handle. I want you there." "Why?" "Because I'm tired of pretending you don't matter. And because keeping you close means I can protect you better." The next day, Alma found herself in Jinwoo's car heading to a meeting with his business partners. He had dressed her in an expensive black dress, placed diamonds around her neck, and told his men that she was not to be left alone for even a second. "Stay next to me," he instructed as they entered the building. His hand rested possessively on her lower back. "Don't speak unless spoken to. These men are dangerous." The meeting was conducted entirely in Korean, but Alma could feel the tension in the room. Jinwoo sat at the head of the table like royalty, his presence commanding respect and fear. She sat beside him, and every so often his hand would find hers under the table, squeezing gently. After the meeting, one of the older men approached them. He spoke in accented English. "So this is the wife we've heard about. Beautiful Ghanaian woman." "Yes," Jinwoo said coldly. "And unavailable." The man laughed. "Protective. That's risky in our line of work, my friend." "I don't consider you a friend," Jinwoo replied, his voice deadly quiet. "And if you look at her like that again, I'll gouge out your eyes." The man's smile faded. He bowed slightly and walked away. In the car afterward, Alma looked at Jinwoo. "You didn't have to threaten him." "Yes, I did." "He was undressing you with his eyes." "And that bothers you?" He turned to face her, his eyes blazing. "Everything about you bothers me. The way you look, the way you smell, the way every man in that room wanted you. You're mine, Alma." "I don't share." "Then stop treating me like a secret." "I'm trying." He pulled her across the seat and into his lap, despite the driver being right there. "Give me time to figure out how to do this without getting you killed." Over the following days, Jinwoo started teaching Alma about his world. He showed her how to shoot a gun, how to spot danger, how to defend herself. He kept her by his side constantly, claiming it was for protection. But Alma knew better. He simply couldn't bear to be away from her. One night, lying tangled in her sheets after hours of passion, Jinwoo traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "Tell me about your family," he said quietly. Alma tensed. "My father sold me to you. Not much else to tell. Before that. Tell me you were before this." She was quiet for a moment, then began to speak. She told him about growing up in a small house filled with love and laughter before her mother died. About her dreams of becoming a nurse. About how her father's gambling addiction destroyed everything. Jinwoo listened. Really listened. His fingers never stopping their gentle movement on her skin. "You deserved better than this," he said when she finished. "Better than me? Maybe I don't want better. Maybe I just want you." He pulled her on top of him, his hands spanning her waist. "You're too good for me, but I'm too selfish to let you go." "Then don't." Their relationship deepened with each passing day and night. Jinwoo became addicted to her presence. He would find excuses to touch her, to be near her. His men noticed the change in him, how he smiled more when she was around, how his eyes followed her everywhere. But happiness in Jinwoo's world never lasted long. 3 weeks after he had started keeping her close, they were leaving a restaurant when a black van screeched to a stop beside them. Men jumped out, grabbing Amma before Jinwoo could react. "No!" Jinwoo roared, pulling his gun. But one of the men held a blade to Amma's throat. "Drop the weapon or she dies." Jinwoo's hand shook, something his men had never witnessed before. His eyes met Amma's terrified gaze. "It's okay," she said, trying to stay calm. "Let them take me." "No." His voice broke on the word. "I'll kill every single one of you." "Drop the gun or watch her bleed," the man repeated. Jinwoo's security team had their weapons drawn, but there were too many civilians around. A wrong move and innocent people would die. Amma saw the agony on Jinwoo's face. The impossible choice. "I'll be okay," she told him. "Find me. I know you'll find me." "Amma." His voice was raw with emotion, with fear, with love he'd never spoken aloud. The men dragged her into the van. The last thing she saw before the doors closed was Jinwoo's devastated face, his gun finally lowering, his composure completely shattered. "Get every man we have," Jinwoo said to his head of security, his voice deadly calm now. The calm before a massacre. "Burn this city down if you have to. But find her. Find my wife." The word wife carried a weight it never had before. Not a transaction, not a prisoner. His wife. His woman. His everything. "We'll find her, boss," his man promised. "You have 3 hours before I start executing everyone connected to this." Jinwoo's eyes had gone cold, but his hands still shook. "And tell everyone in the underworld that whoever took her just signed their own death warrant." As his men scrambled to follow orders, Jinwoo stood on the empty street where Amma had been taken. For the first time since his brother's death, he felt genuine fear. He had been right to build walls, right to keep people at a distance. Because now that those walls were down, now that he had let himself love her, losing her was going to destroy him. But he would get her back. Even if he had to paint the streets red with blood. Even if it cost him everything. She was his. And he protected what was his, no matter the cost. The warehouse was dark and smelled like rust and decay. Amma sat tied to a chair, her wrists burning from the rough rope. Her lip was split from where one of the men had struck her. Her whole body ached, but she refused to cry. Refused to give them the satisfaction. "He'll come for me," she said for the 100th time. The man in charge, a scarred Korean with empty eyes, laughed. "Of course he will. That's exactly the point. Jinwoo has been untouchable for years because he cares about nothing. But now he cares about you. That makes him weak. You don't know him. I know him better than you think. I worked for his father. I watched that boy build an empire on fear and blood. But love." He crouched in front of her, his smile cruel. "Love will be his downfall. And yours." Amma spit in his face. He hit her again, harder this time. Stars burst in her vision. 3 days, he said, wiping his face. 3 days he's been tearing the city apart looking for you. Killing my men. Burning my businesses. All for one woman. It's pathetic." But Amma smiled through the blood in her mouth. "He's coming. And when he gets here, you're all dead." Across the city, Jinwoo stood in an abandoned building surrounded by corpses. His hands were covered in blood. His suit was ruined. He'd been awake for 72 hours straight, surviving on rage and desperation. "Talk," he said to the last man breathing, his gun pressed against the man's temple. "Where is she?" "I don't know. I swear." Jinwoo pulled the trigger without hesitation. The man's lies died with him. His phone rang. "Finally. Tell me you found her." "East Docks, Warehouse 12, his head of security said. "We have eyes on the building. At least 15 men inside. I don't care if there's 100. I'm going in." "Boss, wait for backup." But Jinwoo was already moving. He'd waited 3 days. 3 days of imagining Amma hurt, scared, calling for him. 3 days of realizing that his life meant nothing without her in it. 3 days of understanding that he loved her more than he feared losing her. He was done waiting. When Jinwoo reached the warehouse, he didn't bother with strategy or stealth. He walked through the front door like death itself, his guns blazing. Men fell before they could even raise their weapons. He moved through them like a force of nature, unstoppable. Nothing would keep him from her. Inside the main room, the scarred man held a knife to Amma's throat. One more step and she dies. Jinwoo froze. His gun aimed at the man's head. His eyes found Amma's. She looked hurt but alive. Brave even with a blade against her skin. His heart, which had been frozen for days, finally started beating again. "Let her go," Jinwoo said, his voice deadly calm. "Let her go and I'll make your death quick. You're not in a position to negotiate. Neither are you." Jinwoo smiled, cold and terrible. "You see those red dots on your chest? My snipers have you in their sights. The moment that knife breaks her skin, you're dead. But if you're smart, you'll step away now." The man looked down and saw 3 laser dots dancing across his torso. His hand shook. "Your choice," Jinwoo continued. "Die quickly or die slowly. But you're dying today either way." The scarred man made his choice. He moved the knife away from Amma's throat and lunged at Jinwoo instead. He didn't make it 3 steps. Jinwoo's bullet caught him between the eyes. The man dropped like a marionette with cut strings. Then Jinwoo was running to Amma, cutting the ropes with shaking hands. The moment she was free, he pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I've got you," he whispered over and over, his voice breaking. "I've got you. You're safe. You're safe." Amma clung to him, finally letting herself cry. "You came." "Of course I came." He pulled back just enough to cup her face, his thumbs wiping away her tears. His own eyes were wet. "Did you think I wouldn't? Did you think anything in this world could stop me from getting to you?" "You're crying," she said softly, touching his cheek. "Because I thought I lost you." His voice cracked completely. 3 days of not knowing if you were alive. 3 days of going insane. "I love you, Amma. I'm completely, hopelessly in love with you. And I can't do this anymore. Can't pretend. Can't push you away. I need you like I need air." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "You love me? So much it terrifies me. So much I'd burn the whole world down to keep you safe." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm sorry I was such a coward. Sorry I wasted so much time fighting this. But I'm done fighting. If you'll have me, broken and dangerous as I am, I'm yours. Completely yours." "I love you too," she whispered. "I've loved you for weeks. Even when you were cruel, even when you pushed me away, I saw the real you beneath all that ice. And I fell in love with him." Jinwoo kissed her then, soft and desperate and full of every emotion he'd been holding back. When he pulled away, he carefully lifted her into his arms. "Let's go home," he said. The ride back to the mansion was quiet. Jinwoo held Amma in the back seat, refusing to let her go even for a second. He kept touching her face, her hair, reassuring himself she was real and safe. "Your hands are shaking," she noticed. "I know. They haven't stopped since you were taken." He looked at her, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "You have no idea what these 3 days did to me. I became a monster. I killed so many people, Amma. All to find me. I'm not afraid of your darkness. You should be. But I'm not." She took his shaking hands in hers. "I see all of you, Jinwoo. The killer and the man. The cold boss and the one who whispers sweet things at night. I love all of you." Something in his chest, something that had been frozen for years, finally thawed completely. At home, Jinwoo carried her straight to his bedroom. Not hers. His. He cleaned her wounds with gentle hands, his jaw clenching every time she winced. "I should have protected you better," he said quietly. "Should have seen this coming. You saved me. That's what matters." After her wounds were cleaned and bandaged, he just held her on his bed. No passion, no urgency. Just the two of them breathing together, hearts beating in sync. "I don't want separate rooms anymore," he said into her hair. "I want you here in my bed, in my life properly. No more pushing me away. Never again. I promise you, Amma. No more coldness. No more pretending you don't mean everything to me." He tilted her chin up to look at him. "I'm going to love you openly, proudly. Let the whole world know you're mine and I'm yours." She smiled despite her split lip. I'd like that. They stayed in his room for 3 days, barely leaving the bed. Jinwoo canceled all his meetings, told his men he was not to be disturbed unless the world was ending. He spent those days worshipping Alma with his hands and mouth and words. He told her he loved her approximately 100 times a day. When she woke up, before she fell asleep, in between kisses, while making love to her slowly, thoroughly, showing her with his body what his words couldn't fully express. You're mine, he would whisper against her skin. My wife. My woman. My heart. I'll never let anyone hurt you again. And Alma would hold him close, feeling the truth of his words in every touch. This wasn't the cold man who had married her out of obligation. This was Jinwoo, completely open, vulnerable, desperately in love. On the 4th day, they finally emerged from the bedroom. Jinwoo's men did double takes at their boss, who walked around with his arm constantly around Alma's waist, who smiled when she spoke, who looked at her like she hung the moon. You're different, his head of security noted carefully. I'm in love, Jinwoo replied simply. And I'm done hiding it. That evening, Jinwoo took Alma to the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. He pulled her down to sit between his legs, her back against his chest, his arms wrapped around her waist. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. She tensed slightly. What? I'm getting out. Not completely, but I'm making changes. No more violence unless absolutely necessary. No more unnecessary risks. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Because I have something to live for now. You asked me once what happens now. This is what happens. We build a life together. A real one. Maybe have children someday if you want them. Children. She turned to look at him, surprised. Why not? Little girls with your beautiful skin and my stubbornness. He smiled, genuinely smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Or boys with your courage and my complete inability to say no to you. Alma laughed, the sound light and free. I never thought you'd want that. I never thought I'd want anything beyond power and revenge. But you changed me, Alma. You made me want ordinary things. Happy things. His arms tightened around her. You made me want to be a better man. You're already a good man. You just needed someone to see it. Then keep seeing it. Keep loving me. Keep being exactly who you are. He turned her in his arms so they were face to face. Because I'm going to spend the rest of my life earning you. Proving I deserve this. Deserve you. You already do. As the sun set completely, they sat together in the growing darkness, finally at peace. The fighting was over. The walls were down. All that remained was love, raw and real and worth every moment of pain it took to get there. I love you, Jinwoo whispered. I love you too, Alma replied. And for the first time in both their lives, those words felt like a promise that would never be broken. 6 months had transformed everything. Alma stood in the conservatory of their mansion, her hands cradling a cup of cocoa tea as she watched the morning light paint gold across the garden. The house that once felt like a mausoleum now felt like home. Fresh flowers appeared in every room. Music played through the halls. Laughter echoed where silence used to reign. Behind her, strong arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against a solid chest. Lips pressed against her neck, soft and reverent. Good morning, my love, Jinwoo murmured against her skin. She smiled, leaning into his embrace. Good morning. You're up early. Couldn't sleep without you next to me. His hands splayed across her stomach possessively. You left the bed an hour ago. I was restless. Thinking about. He turned her in his arms, his dark eyes searching her face with the concern that had become constant since her kidnapping. He still woke up sometimes in the night, reaching for her, making sure she was real and safe beside him. About how different everything is now, she said, touching his face. The hardness that used to live in his features had softened. He smiled more, laughed more, lived more. About how happy I am. Something fierce and tender flashed in his eyes. Not as happy as I'm going to make you today. Why? What's happening today? You'll see. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips with the gentleness he reserved only for her. Get dressed. Something elegant. We have somewhere to be. 3 hours later, Alma found herself in a private conference room filled with Jinwoo's entire organization. Every lieutenant, every captain, every man who worked under him. She recognized many of them from various meetings over the past months. They had learned to respect her, to see her as more than just their boss's wife. But today felt different. The air hummed with anticipation. Jinwoo stood at the head of the table, commanding and powerful in his black suit. But his hand held hers, fingers intertwined, a public display he would have died before showing 6 months ago. "I've called you all here to make an announcement," he began, his voice carrying authority that made grown men straighten in their chairs. "For years, I've built this organization on fear, blood, and ruthlessness. We've profited from ventures that existed in moral gray areas and beyond. That ends today." Murmurs rippled through the room. Alma squeezed his hand, proud and nervous. "I'm restructuring everything. Our drug operations are done. Our illegal gambling rings are being shut down. Our weapons trafficking stops immediately." He paused, letting the shock settle. "We're going legitimate. Real estate development. Import-export businesses. Security consulting. All legal. All clean." "Boss," one of the older lieutenants spoke up carefully. "That will cost us millions. Our rivals will see it as weakness. Let them." Jinwoo's eyes were hard as steel. "Anyone who has a problem with this new direction can leave now with a generous severance and my guarantee of safe passage. But if you stay, you follow my rules. We build an empire that won't crumble because of federal investigations or gang wars. We build something that lasts." He looked around the room, daring anyone to challenge him. No one did. "There's one more thing you all need to understand." He pulled Alma closer, his arm wrapping around her waist. "This woman is not just my wife. She's my partner. My equal. Any decision I make with her counsel. Any respect you show me, you show her. Any enemy who targets me, I'll destroy. But any enemy who touches her..." His voice dropped dangerously low. "I'll make their death last days." The room was utterly silent. "From this moment forward, she has my authority in all business matters. Her word is my word. Her safety is your primary concern after mine." His voice was lethal. "Is that understood?" "Yes, boss," came the unified response. Alma's heart swelled. This wasn't just about business restructuring. This was Jinwoo publicly declaring to his entire world that she mattered, that she had value beyond being his possession, that she was his equal in every way that counted. After the meeting, as they walked to the car, she stopped him. "That was a huge risk. You're completely changing everything you built." "No." He cupped her face in both hands. "I'm building something better. Something worthy of you. Our children won't inherit a criminal empire. They'll inherit a legitimate business and a father who chose love over power." Tears pricked her eyes. "Children." His smile was soft, hopeful. "If you want them. If you want a future with me that looks nothing like our past." "I want everything with you," she whispered. He kissed her there on the street, not caring who saw, the cold, untouchable boss kissing his wife like she was oxygen and he was drowning. 2 weeks later, Alma stood in a small chapel filled with flowers and soft candlelight. But unlike the first time, her heart was full instead of breaking. This ceremony was their choice, their decision, their truth. She wore a dress she actually picked, a flowing cream gown that made her dark skin glow. Fresh flowers were woven into her braids. She carried a bouquet of wildflowers instead of perfect roses. And at the end of the aisle, Jinwoo waited. He looked breathtaking in a tailored gray suit, his eyes locked on her with such love and reverence that her steps faltered. When she reached him, he took both her hands. She saw they were shaking slightly. "Nervous?" she whispered. Terrified, he admitted with a small smile. "Afraid I'll wake up and this will all be a dream." The officiant, a kind older woman instead of the stern man from their first wedding, smiled at them both. "We are gathered here today to witness these two souls renew their commitment to each other. Not from obligation, but from love. Not from debt, but from choice." Jinwoo squeezed her hands. "Jinwoo, you may speak your vows." He took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving Alma's face. The first time we stood together like this, I made promises I didn't mean. I looked at you and saw a burden, a complication, something forced on me that I resented. His voice grew rough with emotion. I was so wrong. You weren't a complication. You were salvation. You saw through my walls, refused to be invisible, and loved me when I gave you every reason not to. Tears already streamed down Alma's face. Today, I make different promises. I promise to love you openly, proudly, without reservation. I promise to be worthy of the gift you've given me by staying. I promise to build a life with you where our children know safety, love, and parents who chose each other every single day. He lifted her hands to his lips, kissing each one. You are my wife by choice now. My partner. My heart. And I will spend every day of my life proving I deserve you. Alma had to take a moment to compose herself before she could speak her own vows. When we first met, you were the most terrifying man I'd ever seen. So cold. So dangerous. I thought marrying you was a death sentence. She smiled through her tears. But you weren't what you seemed. Beneath that ice was a man capable of devastating love. A man who protected fiercely, felt deeply, and just needed someone to see him. Jinwoo's jaw clenched with emotion. I promise to always see you. The real you. I promise to stand beside you as you build something better. I promise to love you in your darkness and your light, because both make you who you are. Her voice strengthened. You are my husband by choice now. My partner. My home. And I choose you every single day for the rest of our lives. The rings, the officiant said softly. They exchanged new rings, not the cold platinum bands from their forced wedding, but warm gold engraved with words in both Korean and Ghanaian, forever bound by choice. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Again. The officiant smiled. You may kiss your bride. Jinwoo pulled Alma into his arms and kissed her with everything he felt. Love, devotion, gratitude, promise. The small gathering of trusted friends and a few of his most loyal men applauded, but they were lost in each other. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Jinwoo whispered against her lips, mine. Forever mine. Forever yours, she agreed. The reception was held in the mansion's garden, transformed into an elegant outdoor celebration. String lights hung from the trees. Tables were draped in soft fabrics. Music played, romantic and sweet. But before the dancing started, before the celebration truly began, Alma pulled Jinwoo aside to a quiet corner of the garden. I have something to tell you, she said, her heart racing. His expression immediately shifted to concern. What's wrong? Are you feeling all right? You've been tired lately. Should we leave? I can call the doctor. Jinwoo. She put her hand over his mouth, laughing softly. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. We're going to have a baby. He froze completely. His eyes went wide, dropping to where his hand rested against her flat stomach, then back to her face. You're pregnant. His voice was barely a whisper. 3 months. I found out last week, but wanted to wait until today to tell you. Our new beginning deserved this news. Jinwoo's eyes filled with tears. She'd seen him cry only once before, when he found her after the kidnapping. But now tears spilled down his cheeks unchecked as his hand pressed gently against her stomach. We made a baby, he said, wonder in his voice. We're going to be parents. Are you happy? She asked, suddenly nervous. Happy? He laughed, the sound breaking with emotion. Alma, I'm terrified and thrilled and so grateful I can barely breathe. You've given me everything. A reason to change. A reason to be better. And now a child. Our child. He dropped to his knees right there in the garden, pressing his forehead against her stomach. His hands cradled her hips gently, reverently. I promise you, he spoke to her stomach, his voice thick with tears. I promise I'll be a good father. I'll protect you always. Love you unconditionally. Give you a better life than I had. You'll never know fear or loneliness or pain if I can prevent it. Alma's hands threaded through his hair as her own tears fell. You're going to be an amazing father. He looked up at her, his face wet but smiling. I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for this. For everything. They stayed like that for long minutes, wrapped in each other and the promise of their growing family, before returning to their celebration. The moment came for their first dance as husband and wife by choice. Jinwoo led Amma onto the dance floor as a slow song began. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. Her hands rested on his shoulders as they swayed together. "Do you remember what I said at our first wedding?" he murmured, his lips brushing her ear. "You said many cruel things. I said you were mine." His arms tightened. "I meant it as a threat, as ownership. But tonight, I say it differently." He pulled back to look into her eyes. "You're mine, Amma. And I'm yours. Completely. Irrevocably. Forever." She smiled, standing on her toes to kiss him softly. "I remember something else you once said. That you'd break me for other men." "I did break you," he agreed, his voice dropping low, intimate. "But you broke me right back. Broke me for anyone else. Broke me for the cold life I used to live. You broke me in the best possible way." "Good," she whispered against his lips. "Because you're stuck with me forever now. Me and our baby and whatever life we build together." Forever sounds perfect. They danced until the stars came out, surrounded by the few people they trusted, the music soft and romantic. And when Jinwoo whispered promises against her skin, when Alma laughed and kissed him without fear or reservation, it was clear that their story had transformed completely. What began in darkness had found its light. What began in force had become choice. What began as a transaction had become the truest love either had ever known. Later, as they stood together watching their guests enjoy the celebration, Jinwoo's hand rested protectively on Alma's stomach where their child grew. His other hand held hers, their new rings catching the light. "I told you once that loving you is weakness," he said quietly. "And now I know that loving you is the strongest thing I've ever done. It made me better, braver, more human." He kissed her temple. "You saved me, Alma. From myself. From a life that would have destroyed me eventually." "We saved each other," she corrected. "You gave me strength when I thought I had none. You showed me that even the coldest hearts can thaw. That love can grow in the darkest places." They stayed there as the celebration continued around them, two souls who found each other in the worst circumstances and built something beautiful anyway. Their journey hadn't been easy. It had been painful, complicated, messy, and real. But it was theirs, and it was forever. In the months and years that followed, they would face challenges. Building a legitimate empire wasn't simple. Old enemies wouldn't disappear overnight. Parenthood would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. But they would face it all together. As partners. As equals. As two people who chose each other every single day. The forced wedding had become a real marriage. The prisoner had become a partner. The cold boss had become a man capable of devastating love. And the woman who was sold to pay a debt had become the queen of an empire built on loyalty, respect, and a love that would last forever. Their story was proof that even the darkest beginnings could lead to the brightest futures. That choice was more powerful than force. That love, real love, could transform everything. Forever bound. Not by obligation, but by choice. Not by debt, but by devotion. And that made all the difference. If you enjoyed Alma and Jinwoo's passionate journey from forced marriage to forever love, please subscribe to Neok Dramas to stay updated on more captivating romance stories. We would love to hear from you in the comments below. Tell us where you are watching from and share your thoughts about this emotional roller coaster of a love story. Did you feel the chemistry? Were you rooting for them from the start, or did Jinwoo have to win you over? What was your favorite moment between these two? Drop your comments, hit that subscribe button, and share this story with anyone who loves intense, transformative romance. Your support means everything, and we cannot wait to bring you more stories that will make your heart race.